Good morning. Welcome to another edition of 15 Minutes of Flame. I'm Robert Phoenix, broadcasting to you live from Austin, Texas. Thought I'd get into a little sort of vocal warm-up there. Hey, what's happening out there? It is another day in the neighborhood, January 23rd, 2018. And today we're going to get into a bit of blitz today. It's going to be fast. It's going to be fast-paced, quick, happening. We're going to cover a few different stories today. The flu is still rampant, and it's apparently killing about 100 people a week. See, I was going to give this news to you yesterday, but yesterday was Monday, so I decided to try to be a little bit lighter yesterday. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and apparently Trump is flying migrants, refugees. They're getting priority boarding status and getting flown out to places like Salt Lake City and Minneapolis. It's just great. I love it. It's like they just decided, hey, we're gonna fly. And look, and I'm not a xenophobe, and I'm not I'm not even a separatist. I'm not a xenophobe. I'm not an Islamophobe. But let's be clear here. We're seeing what happened in Europe. And Europe just, took their pants down and just said, okay, do whatever you want. And it is not working out all that well for Europe. It really isn't. And it all depends on how deep you want to go with the whole situation. I mean, you could get into the no-go zones that are popping up all over Europe, Sweden. You can get into the multiple stories about gang rapes. You can get into the enculturation and the brainwashing that is now taking place on places like German television and soap operas, and in training people to kind of accept this new reality, and not only accept it, but embrace it, marry into it. All those things. It's all happening in Europe. And if you want to find out what the plan is for the United States, just take a look. It's Europe. They sold their soul a long time ago by allowing their leaders to become part of the EU. Bottom line. And the problem with Europe, I'll tell you right now, and this may sound really regressive, they don't have any guns. They don't have guns. They don't have guns. So they can do whatever the hell they want to the people of Europe. Now, you get into Central Europe, and that's a whole other discussion. Places like Hungary and Poland, the former Yugoslavia. These places are, they march to a different beat, let's put it that way. And again, I don't have statistics in front of me, so I don't want to put out a factoid that can be refuted. But I'm going to just instinctually go to a place where I bet they've got guns. I bet they do. So an armed populace is a dangerous populace because ultimately they actually stand a chance on some level against resisting the tyranny of the corporatist state. That's the bottom line. So we have them here for now, and probably will for the foreseeable future, unless, of course, they decide they want to do another Las Vegas style. Man, they were going fast and furious there for a while, weren't they? We were getting hit right and left. Oh man, it's Vegas. Oh man, it's Texas. Oh man, there's something just happened in California. Bam, 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 bam. And now they've sort of cooled off of that program, so it appears. So here we are. We're in the valley. We're in another valley, just making our way towards the promised land. Last night I had an interesting experience. I went to my favorite place that I go to. Many of you know, it's called Jack Allen's, just down the road. So I got out of my car. I had this dialogue in my head. I asked myself, so what's the born-again Christian experience like at Jack Allen's? And if the born-again Christian goes to Jack Allen's. Are they drinking? Are they drinking? And I thought, well, I wonder if a born-again Christian has a couple of drinks. So I sat down and I had an adult beverage. And I started a conversation, ultimately, with this woman who was sitting next to me. Married and has 2 kids. And it turns out she's a born-again Christian. So I get right into this thing with this person. And, of course, they ask, well, what do you do for a living? And that's always an interesting, by the way, she didn't drink. And it's always an interesting question. What do you do for a living? And I'm like, and at that point, I always assume that when I talk to somebody in Texas, they're a born-again Christian. And that is not a stereotype or a cliche. It's true because I would say probably about 70% of the people I run into are either born-again Christians or practicing Christians or whatever kind of label you want to put on it. So I was like, okay, well, where do I go with this? The dilemma. So I'm an astrologer, and I could tell immediately. I was like, ooh, I hit the born-again Christian landmine, and that's not really a landmine. Trust me, a lot of these people are really, really nice people, but it's always kind of interesting to see how they respond after that. So we started talking, and next thing you know, we're having a discussion, a really, really high-level discussion about what's going on the planet, and she's talking about Russ Disda, and we're going back and forth. We're talking about this theory and that. I mean, she was very well informed. Extremely well informed. And we're connecting at a high level with all these various touch points around morality, programming, social programming, social engineering, yada, 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 yada. It was interesting. It was very, very interesting. And I think it might have been interesting for her because all of a sudden now she's having a conversation with an astrologer. It's like, she even, and get this, as a born-again Christian, she even was down with Jesus being born on 9/11. We talked about that. I was like, wow, this is great. Okay, we've got common ground here. And I told her about my theory about the Twin Towers and Kennedy and the timeline and all that stuff, and she was all ears. So that turned out to be a really, really decent connection. And something that surprised me and probably surprised her too. And especially when they hear that you're from California. Oh, you're from California. I'm like, yeah, well, what do you think about the politics in Texas? And I got into it and basically said, yeah, it's not too bad. I just wish they'd have medicinal marijuana here. That would be great. And I think it would be really great if they didn't force businesses to have to comply and bow down to certain countries in certain parts of the world in order to do that business. We talked about that. She really likes the governor here, Greg Abbott. Thinks he's doing a good job. I don't know. I don't know enough about the Abbott. I just didn't like his foreign policy. Let's put it that way. So it was an interesting experience last night, and one that was actually encouraging and pretty positive. But it was really funny. It's like, so I had this moment. So was I creating the experience with that person, or was I intuiting that experience before I walked through those doors? It's an interesting thought. It's an interesting theory to wrap one's head around. There we go. I just wanted to correct a couple of things here before we get into the bulk of the show. And let me just find the right thing. Let me do this. I made an error on the show the other night, and give me 1 second here. I made an error on the show the other night, and I was talking about Jordan Peterson. Again, I actually like Jordan Peterson, and people said, "Well, be careful of Jordan Peterson." Okay, well, why should I be careful of Jordan Peterson? Is he a Nazi? Is he a fascist? Is he a Nazi, fascist, white supremacist, racist, misogynist? Is this why I should be careful of Jordan Peterson? Or is it because he's a Gemini? What's the reason? I think we need to allow people to come into the public debate and be able to voice ideas that make people feel uncomfortable. I don't have a problem with Jordan Peterson's voice. It's he talks like this a little bit. Yeah, gotcha. Whatever. I'm willing. There are other voices in the world that would drive me a little crazier. But I understand. I understand the feeling of not being connected to another person's timbre. I get it. Anyway, I just wanted to make a correction. The person that he debated was Kathy Newman. Okay, Kathy Newman. I apologize for that. I talked about it on the Sunday night show, and I was just exhausted on Sunday night. So sometimes we make these mental errors, and we have to correct them. They do need to be addressed. So I apologize. Kathy Newman was the person that Jordan Peterson was debating the other night. I try to stay on top of this stuff. Then I got a comment about, I said 2018, 105 years of corruption. And I was lovingly corrected on the YouTube page where it was like, no, there's been more than 100. Of course there's been more than 105. There's been corruption from the dawn of time on this planet, okay? And yes, we can go back into that pre-1913 era, and there's a lot of corruption, obviously. I mean, it is part of the human experience. It's part of the human experience. And even if you look at a theocratic state like Saudi Arabia that is so extreme that they'll cut the hands off of people who steal and all that stuff, there's still corruption. There's corruption within the House of Saud. Absolutely. So we live in a domain that is rife with corruption because it's part of the human experience. What I was trying to get across yesterday was the fact that in 1913, there was a Rubicon that was crossed when they passed the Federal Reserve Act, which opened us up to the Federal Reserve, fractional reserve lending, fiat banking, and that was the invasion of the Rothschilds in a big way. They were already here. I mean, let's not disabuse ourselves of the facts and the truth. They were here long before 1913. They were influencing policy through people like Jacob Schiff, who was an agent in this country, and dealing with the robber barons and the magnates of the late 1800s and early 1900s. So the corruption was in place already, but when they hit the Federal Reserve Act, when that was passed, the creature at Jekyll Island, they opened the floodgates to the fractional reserve lending, the Federal Reserve Bank, federal tax laws, which then kicked in, and also getting us into World War I, which sets everything into motion. That war was going to end. World War I was going to end. The British and the Germans were getting ready to have an armistice and put an end to the war, and it was going to be done. And then all of a sudden, the third party came in and said, hey, how'd you like to the British? How'd you like to win the war? We're going to bring the Americans in. We're going to bring the Yanks in. And you can win the war. How does that sound? Well, gee, I mean, we'll actually get to win this thing versus just having a draw. Wow, that's going to look good on my record. Who's the guy, Neville Chamberlain? That'll look good on my record. It'll look good on my CV. History will shine its ever-loving light upon me. And, of course, that's what happened. That's what happened. I got one word, Lusitania. Loose lips sink ships. And that's what got the American people into the war. You had a lot of people in this country that were saying, don't get into the war. Don't fight. Henry Ford being one of them. I think Charles Lindbergh being another. And they were just going on and on and on and on about this is not the best thing for the American people. And it happened. So this is what I was really trying to get at, because once that happens, everything gets set into motion. Of course, the Germans are defeated. We have the Treaty of Versailles. We have the intense and hardcore reparations that the German people had to adhere to. Once that took place, you had the beginning of the Weimar Republic. Once you had the beginning of the Weimar Republic, you have all kinds of graft, and you have corruption, and you have basically a pornographic culture that is immersed in debauchery. And out of that, who do you have? You have the rise of the National Socialist Party, who are going to clean it all up and kick the bankers out. And then we have the rise of the Third Reich. And on the other side, we have the Stalin era, and they're going to clash against one another. And then, of course, we have everything that happens after that. You see what I'm talking about? It's all that 1913 moment. And once the bankers get in, then the corruption goes to another level. It goes to, it's like Super Mario. It just levels up, okay? So yes, corruption did exist prior to 1913. I was just trying to give you kind of this portal where it went quantum, okay? And everything that's happened since then. All right, so we got those two things out of the way. And by the way, keep throwing the comments out there. I love to riff on the comments and even be corrected if I'm wrong. And that happens. I don't have all the answers all the time. And sometimes I get a few things wrong every now and then. And that's okay. It's okay. If we were perfect, we wouldn't be here now, would we? Okay, so here's what I wanted to talk about today. There's a few real pressing issues. And by the way, if you're listening to this, I basically have, and you're trying to get a hold of me via email, I've been off of email for about 3 days. I've basically shut down communications since Saturday because I needed to get some space. I will dive into emails today, and I will address any emails that you have sent to me, and I promise I will get back to you. You have my word. I just needed to, I just need to unplug in a serious kind of way for a few days. It happens. I've got Jupiter in my 12th house. Read about it, transiting. So I wanted to talk about a few different things today. First of all, this flu piece. I'm going to talk about the flu, and I'm going to talk about, I guess to some degree, I'll talk about what's going on with these refugees that are being flown in. I mean, this is, again, why is this happening? They're boarding planes. These are planes that are being used by quote-unquote American people and paying customers. And apparently they've been watching these people get pre-boarded on these planes. They're getting flown into places like Salt Lake City and Minneapolis. For all you people up in Minneapolis, my good friend CJ, Chris Johnson, heaven help you, man. Because they basically what they have done, and I'm just going to cut this and get straight to the point, right? What they've done is they found the whitest places in America to bring these refugees in. It's like sprinkling. Here you go, here you go. And again, I don't. I'm just reporting it. I'm just calling it as I see it. I don't have any bias. Like get these filthy people out of here. I'm just telling you, that's what they're doing. It is what they're doing. And there's a reason why they're doing it. There is a reason why they're doing it. Because they want diversity. Diversity. Yes. Yes. Salt Lake City. Guess what? Peanut curry is coming to your city. Yay! Peanut curry! I actually like peanut curry. I can't eat peanuts anymore. But when I did, I loved the peanut curry. My neighbor in Oakland used to bring it up to me. A little peanut curry, chicken and rice, and that really potent mint tea. Kind of sweet, but man, steeped for hours. One of those glasses of tea. Hallucinating. A peanut curry. This is what you get to look forward to. Peanut curry and spongy bread. But this is what's happening. They don't bring the people. Hey, New York City. Come on, we got some folks here. We're going to introduce them to our great community. They're going to add to our diversity. No, that's not happening. Let's take these people to Seattle, Minneapolis, Salt Lake City, Provo, Des Moines. Ah, yes. Got to mix it up. Got to mix it up and keep that diversity diverse. And it's like, okay, well, fine. All right, now we've got these people here. One time I was in California, and I was in San Rafael. Excuse me. This is back in, I don't know, about 2010, 2011. And I was on the streets of San Rafael, and I ran into this woman who is from, I don't know, some African country on the streets. The woman was a mess, okay? She was confused, she was disoriented, she didn't know where she was, she didn't have any money. I tried to talk to her, I tried to help her. You know, she had barely had any English skills. It was almost like she was just dropped there. I'm like, what is this all about? How did this person get here? You know, that would be like, I don't know, dropping me in Kabul or someplace like that. It's like, what am I doing here? Addis Ababa. I'm in Addis Ababa. Excuse me. I'd like to get a double espresso, please, with just a dollop of foam. Can you please direct me to the local cafe? And by the way, do they have Wi-Fi there? What? What are you talking about? Imperialist American. I watched Black Hawk Down over the weekend. What a clusterfuck story that is. Great movie. I think Black Hawk Down is one of the best war movies of all time. What's amazing about that movie is that they have a lot of actors from other countries playing Americans. Ewan McGregor is in there playing an American. And who else? Orlando Bloom playing an American. Jeremy Piven was playing an American. That's a joke, by the way. Anyway, it's a great movie, and it really is kind of an amazing. You know, at first I've seen that movie about 3 times. Every time I look at it, 4 times. Every time I look at it, I see a different angle of the movie. And the first time I just saw a great war movie, and the second time I saw it was, they're trying their very best to put a sheen on American intervention in quote-unquote third world countries where despots and tyrants are taking advantage of the populace, starving them out, and trying to take over, assert power, gain control, etc., etc., etc. So this was a good thing. It's a good thing that we were there. And then I saw it again, and I realized that it is not that per se, but they're also talking about how it was really a mess, and it was a bad deal, and it was a mission that went horribly wrong because, first of all, we shouldn't have been there. My 2 cents. Second of all, they did not arm the guys with what they needed. So what they needed were these helicopters that had walls on them that would not allow armor-piercing shells to go through. And instead, they had these Black Hawk helicopters, which are fine, but not great for kind of open spaces where people are firing rocket launchers and hand grenade launchers and all that stuff into them. So they did not have the proper equipment, and they probably did not go about the mission in the right way. And so what happens is everything goes wrong, and I think they had 19 guys die, and it was 1,500 Somalians die. It's a brutal, absolutely brutal. And then the general who was running the operation resigned, I think a week after the leader of the Somalian insurgents got captured. Once that happened, he resigned. That was under Bill Clinton, by the way. And looking back on it, Bill Clinton might have been the most unqualified commander-in-chief for anything resembling a military mission. And by the way, he was involved in quite a few of them over the course of his presidency, probably against his will, and most of those took place in the last year and a half of his presidency, although 1993 is when this whole thing happened in Somalia. That was just a year into Clinton's presidency. Am I right? I think I'm right about that. 84, 88, 92, a year after. So he gets in, and next thing you know, he's ponying up with the UN troops in Somalia. Anyway, interesting movie. Look, I think, again, my position on this is like zero out their debt. Get rid of the debt for these third world countries. Get the NGOs completely out of there. Get out of the nation building that we theoretically do. Get out of spreading democracy. Not a great thing to do. And if you're going to go in and have some footprint, because if you don't, guess what's going to happen? The Chinese and the Russians will. The Chinese have already shown that they're doing that to a large extent. You've got to completely revamp what you're doing. Completely revamp the program. But the zeroing out of the debt is absolutely essential. It's essential. All right, let's move on from that. Just to let you know, while Trump is moaning and groaning about the refugee status and migrants, and his constituents are eagerly waiting to see what he does about DACA. All these folks moving around the country. It's happening, and you just have to be aware of it. You have to be aware of it. Now you may say, "Oh, well, their place is shit, and it's a hellhole." And well, what else are they supposed to do? Well, we help create the shit, and we help create the hellhole. So I guess we have some responsibility, right? Let's stop creating the hellholes. Why don't we start there? Why don't we kind of just back off of this? And figure out a new plan. I think that'd be a great idea. And then looking at the infrastructure of our country. Take a walk through Appalachia, West Virginia. Take a walk through East St. Louis. And you tell me who needs help in those areas, in that part of the world. We don't have to look too far afield to understand that there are people in this country that need assistance as well. All right. So this flu thing is interesting. And, we have been inundated for the last 15 years or so with these scares. The bird flu, H1N1, Ebola. All these plagues, all these modern plagues have descended upon us. We also have West Nile virus. I think the worst one is Lyme. And my theory is that most of us have Lyme disease at this point. And I'm not alone. You can check that out on the internets. And Lyme disease being a actual breakdown of the immune system. And of course, Lyme being created at the Plum Island Institute on Plum Island off the coast of Connecticut, if I'm not mistaken. Is that where it first showed up in Lyme, Connecticut, with the little tickies? And then infecting the deer and the people and so on and so on and so on. So let's get into this. This is from theindependent.co.uk. And this is about this flu. And we talked about this, I talked about it yesterday, but I talked about dispersals in the upper atmosphere, which took place on what? On the eclipse. And of course we have our pals, the chemtrails. And then we've got, again, look, we have people coming in from other countries. And I have a Facebook friend whose son works for INS and down on the border. And she told me horror stories about the people when they're brought in. Like they're just crawling with lice. A lot of them are sick because they've been traveling and they've picked stuff up along the way. And they just bring them right in. They just bring people right in. And apparently there is not a heck of a lot of treatment that goes on. I think they get washed down and deloused. But from what I understand, there wasn't a ton of, hey, we're going to hit you with about 50 different shots so we can get you inoculated and you can hit the ground running and start working and start sending money back to your family down in Mexico. That wasn't really, I think, very evident from what I understood. Light touch, minimal processing, Minimal processing. Okay, and so, but it's clear that, we have different strains and different viruses that we're not used to coming into the country. I am not being a xenophobe. I am being somebody who is pragmatic. It's just a pragmatic observation, okay? Which means that you have to stay healthy, which means that you have to stay on top of your immune game so that you don't actually get sick. All right, so let me rip through this here. A deadly flu virus has been killing around 100 people per week in the U.S. since mid-December. The Center for Disease Control has warned. A report published by the CDC with the latest figures showed that there were 759 flu deaths between 7 October and 23 December. That's a lot. It is also said since early December more than 100 people were dying every week from the flu. And the death toll could increase as there has been a further rise in the number of hospital admissions. This is more than double the number of flu deaths from the same period last year when there were only 322 reported fatalities, CBS News reported. People dying from flu. An increase in the number of reported cases of the flu during the winter is common and usually peaks around Christmas and New Year when people are traveling and spreading illness. But this year's prevailing strain, H3N2, which has been dubbed Aussie flu, Aussie, is known to be particularly vicious and strong. That's that flu from Australia and all those prisoners that came from England. Got to watch out for that flu. They're strong. It's a strong flu. That flu drinks cases of Fosters. In the UK, 149 people have so far died. I used to drink Fosters. Remember those big cans, those big oil cans? And apparently the Australians couldn't stand the beer. Huge hit in America. I think it was the can. Which has been dubbed Aussie flu, is known to be particularly vicious and strong. In the UK, 149 people have so far died, and last week 4,500 people were hospitalized, according to Public Health England figures. Some 120 flu deaths have been recorded in England, 21 in Scotland, and 8 in Northern Ireland. Wow, there's no precise data available for Wales. The Catholic Diocese of Down and Connor in Northern Ireland has temporarily banned its priests from shaking hands with parishioners as they receive the Holy Communion in favor of a sign of peace. They can't even do the communion now. Why don't they just wear gloves? Why can't they just give the communion with gloves? Now you've got to do the sign for peace. Meanwhile, people are still being urged to get a flu jab. Oh, yeah. Yeah, get that flu jab so you can get the flu. A letter sent to every GP practice in England last week warned that up to 3 million high-risk patients have yet to have the jab. Get the jab. So you can spread the flu around because you're going to be contagious for the next 21 days. Yes, that's true. The flu virus mutates every year, so even people who have had the vaccine in previous years need to be immunized against this latest strain. So you see they top load this, they make it heavy on the top with all the fatalities and all the statistics, and what do they do at the end? Get the flu shot. This is something that we need to keep our eye on. This is from Activist Post, came out yesterday. And it is Congress quietly pushing bill to require national biometric ID for all Americans. They do this all the time. They've been pushing this thing for a while. And so here we go. This is the author's Matt Agarist. Earlier this month, Representative Bob Goodlatte. He should have a cafe, shouldn't he? Good lattes. Man, get out of politics, Bob. Start your own cafe. Introduced H.R. 4760, Securing America's Future Act of 2018, a sweeping bill that entails everything from education in the workforce to homeland security in the military. Also tucked away in this 400-page behemoth of a bill are the details of a new biometric national ID card that could soon be required for everyone. Sunday. Not surprisingly, there was almost no media coverage on this legislation. H.R. 4760 establishes a mandatory national identification system that requires all Americans to carry a government-approved ID containing biometric features. Without this card, according to legislation, you will not be able to work in this country. Saturn and Capricorn, government overreach, the rise of the corporatocracy. It's not the rise, it's here. But it's like, hey, let's put this thing in motion. The legislation was drafted under the auspices of providing legislative solution for the current beneficiaries of deferred action for childhood arrivals, also known as DACA. So this thing is tied to DACA. Hey, we've got a solution. We got ourselves a solution. However, as Ron Paul points out, the bill would give DACA recipients a 3-year renewable legal status, while forcing a biometric national ID card on virtually everyone else. Naturally, this bill is wholeheartedly supported by the anti-immigration sect and has gained 70 co-sponsors already in only a few days. As with most police state promoting legislation, fear of illegal immigration is being pushed to garner such support. Oh yeah. We'll have this national ID card because we'll be able to track these people. Yeah, it's kind of like a wall without a wall. And if you put all the little ID cards together and pasted them all, glued them all together, you'd get a wall. It would be kind of a small wall, like a, but it'd still be a wall. But it's really a digital wall. You see, this is the 21st century. We don't need those kinds of walls anymore. We got a different kind of wall coming. As with most police state promoting legislation in fear of illegal immigration is pushed to garner such support. However, as Ron Paul points out, the bill won't just target illegals, it targets everyone. And it will use your most private information to track you. Under the status national ID scheme, you'd be forced to carry around your national ID card tied to the massive database chock full of biometric identifiers like fingerprints and retina scans. Paul noted without this ID, you won't be able to legally hold a job or likely even open a bank account or even board a plane, and this is likely very true. Paul said there is a very good chance this bill will become law. How about that? The support for it seems overwhelming. He laid out 3 key factors that are detrimental to the freedom of all Americans. 1, allow federal bureaucrats to include biometric identification card information on the card, potentially even including fingerprints, retinal scans, scans of veins on the back of the hands, which could be used as a tracking device. I've got such great veins on the back of my hands. I'm so proud of them. Be required for all U.S. workers, regardless of place of birth, making it illegal for anyone to hold a job in the U.S. who doesn't obtain the ID card. Wow. Do I have to... interesting. Require all employees to purchase an ID scanner. How about that? Think about all the ID scanners that are going to be sold. Think about the companies that are going to hold the data. Think about the companies who are going to sell the data. Think about all the investment possibilities. Sounds great, doesn't it? It's the new craze. Let's see what else. Every time a citizen applies for a job, the government would know. And you can bet it's only a matter of time until ID scans are required to make even routine purchases as well. This is from Dr. Ron Paul. The control freaks in the U.S. government have been trying for years to pass a national ID card law and has been successfully resisted every time. This time over, it appears that the Republicans who used to be vocally opposed to such measures are now fully on board. Likely because the bill's anti-immigration language. Well, likely because they're actually being paid by people who are creating the security infrastructure that will support the national ID card, the database, the distribution of information, and so on and so on. Yeah, it just makes a lot of sense that they be supported by the people who have created this program. You see, that's how it works. However, under the guise and the rubric of trying to control these damn illegals, and this card is the first step towards it, they're like, yeah, let's get this card. That'll teach them. That'll teach these dreamers. For years now, statists in both parties have been fighting to ram their radical national ID database scheme into law. This is what Ron Paul says. In fact, this scheme was a key portion of infamous failed comprehensive immigration reform bills both parties tried to ram through during the Obama administration. Now, using the momentum behind Trump's tough talk on immigration and border security, I'm afraid the statists believe that the best way to finally enact their national ID schemes by promoting their bill on Capitol as a DACA fix, while they sell it to the GOP base as a border security measure. There you go. Of course, that's nothing more than a buzzword meant to trick Americans from all over the country into thinking that Congress is going to seal our southern border, but in reality, it means something far different. The security members of both parties in the U.S. House want the security members of both parties in the U.S. House. That's a bad sentence, dude. Doesn't target any U.S. border. Instead, it's meant to create an all-out police state with them. The truth is, this is exactly the type of battle that often decides whether a country remains free or continues sliding towards tyranny. Paul's Campaign for Liberty is planning a massive crusade against this tyrannical legislation in the form of billboards, commercials, and other advertising. He's even started a petition to let your representative know how you feel about them, ushering a new level of despotism and control. You can sign the petition here. Click. So the petition is online. You can call your representative. You can call this guy Bob Good Latte. You know, if you do not want an ID card, I would say you probably better get involved. Or else if it passes, you've just been sitting on the sidelines and all of a sudden your voice wasn't heard. And look, it may not even matter, but let's pretend it does. So maybe you want to do something about it. Saturn and Capricorn, make it happen. Please share this article with your friends and family, so we can stop the tyrants in their path. Matt Agris is an honorably discharged veteran of the USMC and former intelligence operator, directly tasked by the NSA. There's a lot of crossover with this stuff, right? These people go back and forth and back and forth. Hey, I'm in the NSA. Now I'm a patriot. Hey, I'm a patriot. Now I'm in the NSA. Hey, back and forth they go. And I'm not bashing this guy. I don't know enough, but it's just interesting to see that this happens quite frequently. Anyway, it's out there. It is out there. Bob Good Latte, HR 4760. If you don't want a national ID biometric card, if you're opposed to it, make your voice heard. Until further notice, we still live in a quote-unquote republic / democracy. I'll keep my cynical side out of this. Let's just get involved. Saturn Capricorn, get involved. If you don't like it, make noise. All right. Well, that's it for today. We've gone through a number of different things. We've gone through deadly flu, and we've gone through the despotism, tyrannical control of Big Brother, and we've had to address issues that make us question things like xenophobia and separatism, and yet at the same time, looking at it from a rational perspective, probably makes some sense to really rethink what we're doing in terms of bringing people into the country at a rate that is apparently now increasing, and maybe rethinking about what we do in these countries in order to create the conditions. That's really kind of a big thing. You see, once you get into that, it's like, okay, well, we're taking some level of accountability for it. So we've helped create it. Well, instead of just, hey, come on over here, we made your country a complete and utter landmine. Let's come on over here. No. Let's try to help them out in some way, in a way that's different than helping them out before, which apparently hasn't worked too well. All right, that's it. This is Robert Phoenix. You've been listening to 15 Minutes of Flame. I'll be back tomorrow. And who knows? Who knows what the world will bring us 24 hours from today as the wheel spins. As it spins and spins and spins, who knows where it'll stop and what topic we will cover. But until then, use your head to discern what's real, your heart to discern what's possible. I bet it's Steve. We got a comment here. Lyme is downwind from Plum. Exactly. Lyme, Connecticut, downwind from Plum Island. Yes, absolutely. Thank you for backing me up there, Steve. Steve Crimmy. Love him when he posts in the little chat room there. We have one. It's on Spreaker. If you ever want to get on live and you want to get in on the chat, I highly encourage it. I would love to take questions from you, and we can respond and do some, real-time stuff. Anyway, I'll be back tomorrow. Use your head to discern what's real. Your heart to stay open to what's possible. And there's a lot out there still possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. This has been 15 Minutes of Flame.